Back taking your phone calls, 412-575-2600 on the Bordas and Bordas hotline. Also taking your tweets at Josh Taylor HD. Let's start with Waylon in Washington. Waylon, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hi, Josh. Hope you're doing well tonight.
Appreciate you.
Hey, a couple things. Obviously, like turnovers, penalties, the Steeler game. Turnovers, penalties, special teams. However, it's Drew Brees, all this stuff. How about, Mike Munchak and the offensive line of the Steelers? I mean, the Saints better, check themselves, because here comes Pittsburgh coming to town. Any thoughts?
Saints have one of the best run defenses in the game. So I don't think they're just going to roll over. Good point, though. You're absolutely right. The Steelers put together a physical game plan on offense. They didn't just sit back and throw it 60 times. And credit to them for doing that. Mike Munchak, not only does he get credit for what the line did last week against New England, I don't think people realize how difficult it is for a unit like that performs at that kind of level when everybody's actually together, when you have a healthy Marcus Gilbert and everybody's together to perform at that level. That's one thing. They haven't had Marcus Gilbert in, a month and a half now? They had Ramon Foster out for a little bit, and Matt Filer had to step in for Marcus Gilbert. You had B.J. Finney step in for Ramon Foster, and this line didn't miss a beat. That is the important thing with Mike Munchak. That's the cool part. Then there was a game when they didn't have Marcus Gilbert or Matt Filer, and Chooks Okorafor steps in, and he does the job pretty well. That's the thing that impresses me the most. They've had to use 3 backups, and they haven't missed a beat. So if there's one thing I'm looking at Mike Munchak and saying, that's a big job that he's done, or great job that he's done, it's that for me. The continuity despite injuries on this offensive line, when you've had to go with 3 of your backups starting at different points of the season, that's the thing that's most impressive. And to be able to do what they did last week, and the line looked really good. They pulled some plays. They pulled that old LSU toss counter out of the playbook and used that last week with Jalen Samuels. I thought that was great. They did a lot of some of the older things you've seen, even with Le'Veon Bell in the past few years. A little counter left, a little power right, rinse, repeat. I kind of joke about that on Twitter all the time. But they showed a lot of that older-looking Steelers football, running the football in those past few years. That's been really beneficial with Le'Veon Bell. And they did it with Jalen Samuels, and a lot of it, like Waylon mentions, does go back to the offensive line. At the same time, that Saints run defense is really, really good. So if you think it's going to be easy sledding just going in, I'm not as confident, but I'd be really, really satisfied. If they do a good job against that run defense, then they've definitely probably done their best work of the season. Let's go to Mike in Squirrel Hill. Mike, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hey, Josh. How are you tonight?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Two questions. First, do you think Artie Burns will be back next year? I think he has one more year on his contract, but I just don't see how they could even bring him back if they're benching him pretty much the whole rest of the year. And the second question is, I don't know what you think, but the Ravens look really good tonight. I think they're going to beat Los Angeles.
Yeah.
That means this is a must win tomorrow. I don't see them getting in if they don't beat New Orleans, which is going to be very, very tough on the Steelers. They blew it by losing all those games to teams like Oakland and losing to Denver. It would be really depressing that the Steelers from 7-2-1 don't even get into the playoffs. Just want to get your thoughts.
Well, remember what they went to get to 7-2-1. Remember, they started from 1-2-1 to get to 7-2-1. But yeah, I understand the thorough thought of it all. To see the season start that low, and then to peak that high at 7-2-1, and then to fall back to where they lose in Oakland. That game in Denver shouldn't have been lost the way it was. They shouldn't have lost that game in Denver, and they shouldn't have been taken to the brink in Jacksonville. As much as we want to look at Oakland and look at Denver, Jacksonville was really when the signs started to show. That team looked bad for 3.5 quarters. The defense kept them in the game. That was one of the games where I thought the defense didn't get enough credit. They managed to keep Jacksonville out of the end zone while the offense just continued to fail and turn the ball over and not get it done. But the defense kept them in it good enough to win it at the end of the game. That was really the game where the cracks started to show in the offense. Then it started to manifest itself in Denver. More plays here and there that got missed and more mistakes that got left on the field. And then in Oakland, it pretty much was just the entirety of it all is when it all really started to collectively fall apart. It wasn't just offense, it wasn't just defense, and it wasn't just special teams. It was really the collective as a whole, and all of it looked bad. But to say all of that, the Ravens, like you mentioned, their defense has done a really good job with the Chargers. Phillip Rivers was a guy coming in this game. You can make the argument this is one of the hottest offenses besides maybe New Orleans in the past 4 or 5 weeks. And they're at home and really being shut down by the Ravens defense. They've done a really good job. But Phillip Rivers with the ball late, he's had some pretty good performances this season late in the game. So 11 minutes left in this game. We'll see how it goes. But I totally understand the severity of winning this game tomorrow. Even if the Ravens lose this game, even if the Chargers win, winning tomorrow is still pretty severe for the Steelers. I think it's just as equally important whether or not the Ravens win this game. Let's go to Brett in Duncansville. Brett, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Hi, Josh. How are you, buddy?
Good. How you doing?
Good. Happy holidays to you.
Likewise. Appreciate it.
I have 3 points for you. I have my score for tomorrow, and my score is going to be 34-31 Pittsburgh tomorrow.
Okay.
And if the Steelers defense gets to Drew Brees early, they're going to win.
All right.
And do you think the Pirates are the Pirates really showing in Detroit Tulowitzki, or is that a make-up story?
From considering who it came from, I don't think it's a made-up story. I think Jason Rollison has no added benefit whatsoever in making up something like that. I thought the information that he got was as honest as possible he can possibly get. Here's the thing. When you hear stuff about that, there's always a reason why they say it could happen, it might happen, and there's interest, because some of that stuff does not go into fruition. There are a lot of talks that take place during the course of an offseason. We maybe hear about 15% about the stuff that goes on. We don't hear a good fraction of what teams are talking about and guys that they're interested in or calls that they've made on other players. We know we get probably some of the more, I'd say maybe that top 10-15% that kind of rises to the top. But there's a lot of stuff we just never hear about. Deals that are never made, or maybe it fell apart maybe with 5 minutes left in the discussion. So for something like that to get that close and be discovered, I don't think it's necessarily false because it didn't happen. It just meant it didn't happen. That's the offseason. There was a discussion with the Pirates and the Dodgers maybe sending Francisco Cervelli to L.A. to bring Ross Stripling back to Pittsburgh, and that fell apart. It happens all the time. Just because it doesn't come to fruition doesn't mean the discussion wasn't true. And just because it doesn't happen doesn't mean it's the end of the world. That's just how the offseason works. Got a couple tweets here I want to go through. We have Todd who says, love the hot stove talk. Appreciate that from Todd. Let's go back to the phone lines. We got Mike in Bethel Park. Mike, you're on the Nightly Sports Call.
Yeah, hey, Josh. Evening. Just wondering if I'm wrong. I apologize. I've noticed the transition the last 2 or 3 weeks. Normally the leagues cater to the offensive shootouts, but it seems like defenses are allowed to be a little more physical with receivers, bump and run, and get away with a little more extra activity. And if that's the case, I think that will benefit the Steelers' defense on Sundays because they're not as talented as New Orleans. And I think if they could get a little favoritism with this little extra play being allowed, that may favor them. What did you think?
That's an interesting way to look at it. I know one thing that has been discussed in recent weeks is that they were going to really try to clamp down on a lot of procedural calls on offense and holding calls, and that's something that they're paying a lot more attention to, and the numbers went up drastically. You're starting to see more of that, and I think last week against New England was a good example of that. As far as maybe becoming a little bit, a little bit more laissez-faire as far as defensive penalties, maybe that's their way of evening things out. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's as stark as maybe say in hockey or in the playoffs. They pretty much swallow the whistles. The games they're called a lot more tightly, and penalties aren't really called as frequently in playoff hockey games. Is it on that level? I don't know yet. I think it's a little bit too early to call that, but it might be something to keep an eye on. And I know there have been some adjustments in some areas that the league continues to look at, and they've been really, I shouldn't say upfront about it, but they've been a little bit more candid as far as things that they're looking at as far as the season goes on. So that might be something to keep an eye on. I'll probably pay attention to it these last couple games. Taking a break and answer more phone calls when we come back. Stick around.